Today's date is February 26, 2020. The time now is approximately 13:22 hours. This is in reference to Orange County case number 20-017904. I'm currently located in my unmarked agency vehicle outside of a yard in Orlando, Florida. In the car with me is my partner,
Scott Lower.
And in the front seat is, sir, can you state your name for me?
Juan Torres.
And your birthday? Okay. And you are the brother to Jorge Torres Jr., correct?
Yes.
Okay. It came to my, your parents had explained to me that you had a conversation with George a few days ago. Do you recall that specific date?
Yes. It was Sunday.
On Sunday. So Sunday, we're looking at the calendar together, the 23rd?
The 23rd.
Okay, so February 23rd, you guys had a conversation. Do you recall what time that conversation took place?
7:30. Well, it finished at 7:30.
Do you remember what time it started? Do you by any chance still have it in your call log?
Does it do it when... So it had to be 7:30. Because when you call it, clocks it. It doesn't do it at the end, it starts it.
It starts it, and
so
then it tells you how long you talk for.
So it was 7:30.
Okay. If you do have it in your call log, I'd love to take a picture of it if you still have it. So it'd be Sarah. Okay. If you click, I'm just gonna... There we go. Do you mind if I take a photo?
No.
Okay.
Remember, according to Sarah, during the time frame of this call, 7:30, she and Mr. Torres were having a good day, and everything was fine.
And so it says you received an incoming call at 7:30, and you guys spoke for 4 minutes.
Yes. We was talking, I was playing dominoes with my kids and my wife. And at first I wasn't going to pick it up. Then I picked up.
Okay.
Because they were always fighting and stuff with alcohol.
Can you imagine what he would be going through if he hadn't picked up that phone? The questions, the what-ifs that would be going through his mind?
So, he started talking to me, he was calm, so I was like, oh, okay. So I put it on speaker. So, my kids are there, like, they joke around with him, and he was joking around with them. And we're talking, and then he's talking to me about when he was kids. And then, like, a couple minutes after that, that's when I hear in the back start arguing with him. No, I have to call my brother. I have to talk to him. And he's like, no, I'm talking to my brother. It was her phone, so...
The entire call only lasted 4 minutes. That means at this point, Mr. Torres has been talking to his brother for less than 4 minutes. I said earlier that I thought she tried to isolate him from his family. Here's a clip.
I told you it's because I'm the blue-eyed white dragon. That's what they call me. Because they don't want him with me. So he's basically just not really been around his family because he chooses me over them. Even after I've encouraged him numerous times to go over there and see his family.
Back to the phone conversation. She's yelling at him to get off the phone, controlling his communications, not letting him talk to his family. She's claiming she needs to call her brother. Oh, really? She presents this evening as being about her and the victim being together and having a good time, and how she was going to get him to do puzzles and art so he wouldn't drink, except that they drank while they did these things, but well, we'll skip by that for now. But she has to call her brother right now. And it's so urgent that Mr. Torres can't talk to his brother. What was so urgent? Did she ever call her brother and talk to him that evening?
And then she starts arguing and telling him that, no, tell him what you've been doing to me. You choked me, this and that.
Tell him what you've been doing to me? Oh? Remember when Sarah told the police this?
We're
not going anywhere. We're going to be here for a while. I'm just telling you, like,
Yeah, this is going to be a while.
I'm afraid for my life. I want you to know that. I am afraid for my life. His family have never liked me. I'm the blue-eyed white devil, is what they call me. So they've never liked me. They've never taken me in. They've never accepted me, I'll put it that way.
Why then would she be telling on him to his brother? Is she thinking the brother will take her side, speak to Mr. Torres on her behalf, help or protect her? How does this jive with her characterization of the family as a threat to her? Maybe people are only as good as what they can do for her, and or she wants to ensure the victim is always discredited. Maybe it's similar to what she did during her interview with detectives at the station. Remember, she talked about one of the witnesses?
And nonetheless, if you really want to know, and I hope it doesn't get them in trouble, but he is over here illegally. So he's trying to work on getting his green card.
What does that got to do with you using the restroom?
Did she want to get Mr. Torres in trouble with his brother? Can you think of any explanation for this that does not prove she was being deceitful?
But he was calm, and he was like, okay, I gotta let you go. And then he said, I love you. And I told him I love you. And basically, that was it.
This poor guy, this was the last time he spoke to his brother. 4 minutes.
So she yells in the background, tell him what you've been doing to me.
Yeah.
You've been choking me.
Yeah.
Did you ask him anything about that?
No, because the thing with them, they would fight and they would hit each other. Because there was times he came here and she had hit him with a phone and he had a black eye. So it was like...
Did you witness that?
I didn't get to see it, but
okay.
He told me himself.
Okay.
We already know that they were violent with each other. This is more evidence of that. Note that this witness does not try to hide that the victim was also physical. He does not try to paint Mr. Torres as perfect and innocent, nor does he deny that Miss Boone suffered. This matters in assessing credibility. It's also another contradiction of Boone's characterization of the family.
So
you guys know that there's domestic between the two?
Between them. And I told them, get out of there, get out of there. I would tell them, leave. And
he encouraged Mr. Torres to get out of the relationship. This is one of the big reasons why abusers want to control communications between the victim and family and friends. They don't want anyone to point out to the victim what's wrong, or that it's not safe, or that they're worth enough to not be abused. Abusers don't want anyone encouraging or helping the victim to get out. Abusers do not want to lose control over the victim. I'm going to pause for a second here to address anyone listening who is stuck in an abusive relationship. Nobody deserves to suffer abuse. I don't know you, but I do know this. You matter. You deserve to live free of violence. If you're looking for a way out, don't announce it to the abuser. DV shelters and victim services can help you make a plan, and you don't have to go and stay at the shelter to get help from them. If you are a friend or a family member of a victim, you can ask for advice too on how to support your friend. One important thing you can do is to keep reminding the victim that she or he is worthy, that they deserve peace, that they are lovable. The abuser will be giving the victim the opposite message in 1,000 different ways, over and over and over. So it's going to take a lot of repetition to counteract the constant barrage of negative messaging for the victim to be able to begin to accept that she or he is worthy enough to be free of abuse. Okay, back to this phone call.
What's crazy is that he would leave, come here, and she would call and tell him to come back, and she would come and get him. So she had the car, he didn't have a car.
Right.
So
this is a critical piece of information for a couple of reasons. It shows us he was stuck And this is relevant if Ms. Boone wants to use battered spouse as a defense. In order for that to work, she'd have to believe there was no other way out for her. Aside from her own story of the night not being consistent with this defense, we see an additional problem. One that's been brought up before, but through the brother's statement here comes sharply into focus. That's escape. She has already said she sometimes goes to read a book or goes out to take a break. He doesn't stop her, and that's an important little fact. But now we're hearing she went after him. He tried to leave, and she was the one not letting him go. One of the key things that happens in battered spouse is the victim attempts to leave, but the abuser prevents that or chases after the victim until the victim relents. It's not Boone who kept trying to leave. It's Torres. It's gonna take a genius lawyer to make battered spouse work in this case. And that brings up another question. I'm wondering if Sarah is in agreement to using battered spouse. A defense lawyer looking at the evidence must think, oh boy, well, gotta either get a plea deal or come up with a creative defense for this one. The problem with both of these routes is the client. She can't take responsibility. She can't handle being seen as criminal. And she wants what she wants, how she wants, when she wants. And that's to be deemed innocent and to go home. So any reasonable plea deal is out the window. That's if it's even offered. A lawyer would explain to her why a deal, if offered, might be in her best interest. But the lawyer would also have to tell her the negatives. He or she would have to tell her it would mean that Sarah has to admit guilt. What do you think she'd say to that? Not intentional. And I didn't know that would happen. And I would never hurt him. I would never do that. That's not me. That's not who I am. Even if she agreed to a plea deal. A lawyer cannot go ahead with it if the client insists that the mental element is not there. Because the burden of proof is on the prosecution, the defense could just let them present their case, then argue the prosecution has not met their onus. But that won't work in this case. So the lawyer has to come up with a legal defense, even if it's a stretch. Of course, I don't know what has gone on between lawyer and client, but I can imagine being in the lawyer's shoes with this client. I can imagine Sarah griping about how bad the victim was to her and how she did everything for him, and the lawyer reaching for battered spouse, not having a lot to work with. But Sarah's own words in her defense all along have been not intentional. I could see how any potential defense strategy presented to her by a lawyer would throw her into fits. She understands what she wants to understand, and she's frustrated that everybody else isn't just accepting not intentional. Even after it's been explained to her all the things she did intentionally do, she cannot, will not even attempt insight into those things. A lawyer would have pointed these things out to her too, and it would anger and exasperate her and create irreconcilable differences between her and any lawyer. I'm not saying that's what happened. I don't know. I'm saying I could see it. Anyway, I don't see how battered spouse can work. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some other big chunk of information that I don't know about. Or maybe an expert, someone who knows more than me about battered spouse, will get on the stand and provide some genius workaround to the key problems.
You said that he sounded calm.
He was calm, relaxed. Like he would. I can tell because my brother's been drinking for a long time. Mm-hmm. We tried to get him help before.
Right.
Note the witness is forthcoming about the victim's problem, not blaming the defendant or anyone else, not sugarcoating or excusing it.
And I can tell when he was like really drunk, and he wasn't that drunk that night.
He wasn't.
So when you're describing him as calm, that's an indication that he hadn't been drinking that much.
He wasn't that drunk. No.
Okay. When he's been drinking, does he get really excited?
Sometimes he gets excited, and you can tell he like slurs his words, and and I can tell like he gets really emotional, and sometimes starts crying. And
Okay.
Interesting. Emotional, sometimes cries. I have thoughts, but I'll leave it here. Just wanted to point this one out.
And none of that happened
no,
that night?
none of that.
Have you ever witnessed them physically fight?
I've seen them because I've been to their house, and she's come out all crazy. I went over with my wife, and they had called me to go over there. She had called me to go over there.
Sarah?
Sarah had.
Okay.
And I was like,
Again, if his family is such a threat to her and so horrible, why is she calling them to come over and intervene? And do you notice how she has a pattern of dragging other people into her problems and drama? Remember the long list of people she wanted to call after Mr. Torres' death, purportedly to notify them, including his former probation officer? Well, she has lots of attention now, but she's unhappy that not everybody is believing what she wants them to believe.
okay, I'll come over. That he wanted to see me, so I went over. And as soon as I get there, she comes out crazy because she saw some guy peeing around the corner, and she was trying to fight the guy and argue with the guy. And my brother was like, "Yo, calm down, B. Just calm down."
She made up a pretext to get the brother over there. It wasn't even about Mr. Torres. She'd picked a fight with some other dude, and Mr. Torres wasn't going along with her.
And it was like, I went to that. That's why I would try to avoid everything. Like, I would call, whenever he called me, I talked to him. I tried to talk to him. But it was always, like, they were always.
Did she physically...
I hate it when they interrupt. Well, what little we get tells us that chaos and volatility was a pattern and was bad enough that even Mr. Torres' family tried to avoid it.
Did she physically touch George, or was she just getting really upset? And
Upset, like she came out upset. But there's a person, I can't remember, somebody seen him because he was on a bike one day. And he told me, I can't remember the person it was because he was on a bicycle and she hit him with the car. And I can't remember who the person was. And he told me.
Wow. It's not clear to me who him is, whether it was Mr. Torres or the person on the bike she hit with her car. Regardless of who it was, this is serious. I hope police delved further into that for clarification and more information.
Have you ever seen any marks on George?
Yeah, around his neck, eye.
Like what kind of marks?
Like the time she hit him with the phone.
Okay.
He had a black eye, scratches all over his neck.
What he is describing is consistent with what Brian described Sarah did to him. This is a pattern of behavior that predates Mr. Torres. It is clear that she is an abuser, and this information is just further confirmation.
Would you see Sarah every time you saw George?
Off and on. Like, if I would go over there, I would see her with him. And then sometimes if he ever came here, I would see him. Or sometimes when I would go over there, he would just come out and I wouldn't see her.
So you more saw your brother than Sarah?
I think it was equal.
Equal?
Because I've seen her, sometimes she had marks and stuff. So
and what do you mean by marks?
Like bruises and stuff too. They used to beat each other.
And where were her bruises be?
I've seen on her arm, black eyes too.
Okay. Did George ever confide in you about their domestic? problems? Like, did he ever tell you? Is there anything else that he's ever told you about him and Sarah? Any arguments? Any physical altercations?
No, he didn't really like to talk about it like that. Like, everybody knew it.
That the victim didn't talk about it like that happens so often, and everybody knew it. That's common too, sadly. Everybody knows, but it's just part of the landscape. In the next clip, listen closely to how he says the word fight.
Right.
Like, they used to come here and fight and stuff.
Okay.
Did you hear that? There's disgust when he says the word fight. This also shows the couple took their chaos with them, that they didn't or maybe couldn't hide it or contain it.
And my mom wouldn't like it, tell them to go.
Right.
And I know one day she came, it's been like maybe like 2 months. My dad, because she always tried to hug everybody. Everybody didn't want to be hugging like that. And she pushed my dad, and my dad fell.
That's serious. Add elder abuse to the list. This woman is a walking bag of bombs. Assaulting the dad makes me mad and disgusted, and there's nothing I've got to say here that is any different from what you are already thinking. And this business of wanting to hug people who don't want to be hugged, obviously she has a long-standing and serious problem with the concept of consent. And remember how she bemoaned the fact that the Torres family didn't take her in? Well, we're getting a glimpse of why. But the way Sarah characterizes it makes it sound like the problem is them. The problem can never be her. And if this family was such a vengeful group of killers as Sarah tried to paint them, why didn't they do anything to her when she pushed the father? They're not what she says. She just didn't want anyone to tell them the truth about what happened to Mr. Torres. So she made them the bad guys and herself the victim.
So
would they always, would Sarah always be intoxicated when you saw her?
most of the time.
And what about George?
There was times he was not, he had drank, but he wasn't like drunk. Like, he would try to like eat and try to have her eat because they was always drinking so much. So he was like, we need to eat something.
Sarah would have you believe she did everything for him.
But
Did you, like a couple of years ago, did you and your brother have any kind of a falling out? Did you guys get into an argument, a fist fight or anything?
no. See,
Has he gotten into a physical altercation with any of your brothers?
with Farrell, he did. The one that had the long hair.
The curly hair?
Yeah. With him, but it was just...
How severe of a fight was this, though?
Nah, brothers.
Did he
Anybody go to the hospital?
No, nothing like that.
Anybody have, like, bloodied lips, broken noses, anything like that?
broken eye?
No. Oh, he had with my other brother too, with Mo. George had went to the hospital.
George went to the hospital.
Yeah, George.
And it was a few years ago, 2 years ago, maybe 2.5.
That happened because, she said they was drunk. They was at my Mo's house. At Moses' house. That's the other one.
Moses.
His name is Moses.
Is it last name Torres?
Torres. He they had got into it because Sarah had came and said that she had George had beat her, and then they got into it. But I wasn't there that day. Moses he can tell you about that.
Well. Sarah used this fight as an example of how violent and dangerous these people are and how they're such a threat to her. But now we learn the brother took Sarah's side to such an extent that he got into a physical fight with his brother. When Sarah told Mo, did she know he would be that angry, respond like that? And after that happened, having seen that response, she tells on Mr. Torres to his family. Was that the kind of response she expected?
But George did go to the hospital.
George went. George was in the hospital for that.
Do you remember what injuries he sustained?
Something in his eye socket.
The nose, maybe?
I think his nose, too. But it had, something was wrong with his, like...
Orbital?
Yeah, the orbital. Yeah.
Alright, is there anything else that you think is important for us to know about your brother or Sarah and their relationship? I'm assuming the 4-minute conversation, he was just kind of like, you guys were just talking at first.
At first, just talking. I would notice that he was okay. It wasn't a fight.
You said he was joking with your kids, and
then that's when Sarah came.
And then you let him go, or he let you
go.
He
said, "Oh," because he was like, my niece and nephew there, they can hear you, like. So he was like, all right, bye, and then.
Okay.
How did she sound?
She sounded like crazy, like she always did. Like she was always like that, crazy. Like she would just start yelling.
Was she yelling any kind of threats or anything?
No. She was just saying about calling her brother.
Okay, can you raise your right hand for me? Do you promise and swear everything we've talked about has been true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
This ends the recording 13:35 hours.